Hey everyone, this is Scott from certmedia.com, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to set up the Yahoo login feature with Nextend Social Login Pro. This will require the Pro add-on because this is locked behind the Pro add-on paywall before you're able to set this application up. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to have the Pro plugin installed, you're going to navigate to the Yahoo provider, and you're going to need a Yahoo account. If you do not have one yet, I recommend making that now before going through the rest. So it gives you a link to where you have to go in. You'll need to go to the apps URL, and then you're going to click on create an app. You're going to then click create here, and you're going to be creating a web application. Social login test is what we're calling it. You're going to go ahead and enter a description. You should add a description because this is what's going to describe what the app is to anybody on Yahoo who may moderate the apps. Of course, I'm not sure of many people who may still be using Yahoo, so I doubt they're really stringent on the requirements. For the description, just say social login for educational purposes. Then you can declare your homepage URL. You need to do this at your homepage without a trailing slash. You're going to paste it in here. This is not an optional field. You do need to include this. For your redirect fields, you have to put in, as it mentions here, wp-login.php for the website. Under the API permissions, it lists that you do need the OpenID Connect permissions. Once you tab this, though, you're going to need to declare both email and profile information, because if you're using something like BuddyPress, you're going to need that extra information. Once you do that, you're just going to simply create the app. It's going to go through, and it's just going to give you a little bit of a delay as it tries to process it, Yahoo. And then it's going to give you a nice client ID, which you're going to need. And then you're going to simply come over to the settings and paste in client ID. You're just going to paste it in right here and then copy your client secret. You shouldn't need the app ID. Of course, naturally, I copied the text that said client secret instead of the key they gave me. Okay, then all you need to do is click Verify Settings, which will just require you to agree to this. And then it says Works Fine is disabled. So what this means is you enabled it. You didn't enable it on the setup page, but it does verify the settings. After you do that, this can now be used for users to sign in and or register on your website. Some of the other cool options that you get since you're using the Pro version are some additional integrations, and you can request extra information. So for instance, for your other settings, you could choose to add a prefix on the registration. So you could add like Yahoo as the prefix for somebody who registers on the website. But what I typically recommend doing is you should only use it if the username is already declared or is invalid. So if the username that Yahoo sends to the website, which they will send because you fill out the profile information, you should add a prefix on this option in case somebody else already has that username. So if somebody has a username as Scott, but somebody tries to register with Yahoo and that's their username as well, it will not let them use that username unless you have a prefix declared. Then you could choose for the Pro settings, you get a lot of extra options, which is awesome. And I'm glad that the Pro version allows some extra flexibility. You can ask for the email on registration. This should be sent by Yahoo. But what you can do is if the email is not provided or empty, ask for the email during registration. I recommend you do this. WordPress will probably not even function correctly without some sort of email provided. And you don't want to have somebody register for a website where an email isn't provided, because then they have no real way of resetting a password or doing much of anything, and you have no way of contacting them with pertinent information. You can ask for a username on registration. I would ask if the username is empty or invalid. This is a replacement for just declaring a fallback on the username. So if the scenario where someone named has the username as Scott is already registered, what this will do is if they don't have a username, so Yahoo doesn't send one, or it's already been taken, they can just input a new username, and that's what they'll be able to sign in as. That's a good option to give the power back to the user instead of just randomly generating one with the prefix. It depends on the type of audience you're going for, but for most platforms, that's probably the ideal situation. Then you can ask for the password on registration. This is tricky. You can either have it send an email and then it will allow them to set the password, or you can ask for it immediately during the registration process. They have it set to never. I think that's a pretty good option, primarily because bots will probably use this to their advantage, where they just stick a random password in instead of having to go verify the account and then get the password to sign in. Automatically connect the existing account upon registration. This is awesome. I love this feature. You should automatically have it connect based on email addresses. That way you don't have somebody signing up with multiple accounts with the same email address, but it also allows them to sign in through all the methods that they combine and choose. So I recommend doing this. You could use a disable login for the selected roles. So if you don't want to allow, say, authors to log in with these features, you can do that. But really, the only time you really want to use this, I imagine, is for the admins or the subscribers, depending on how you're structuring your website. And then there's the default roles for users who are registered with this provider, and using it with the default is the ideal setup, which is subscriber. For those of you who are curious, if somebody registers on the website and you have this checked as administrator, that user who registers with Yahoo will automatically be made an administrator. You never want to do that, frankly, ever, I imagine. I don't see when you want to do this. So default is typically the recommended option, or just setting them as subscriber as well. You can modify your button by just changing the text. You could choose to use a custom button, which allows you to modify the code on the output of the button, and they use an inline SVG for the Yahoo icon. We're not going to modify that here. And then the icon button is obviously just a different type of button that you could choose, and it allows you to modify it all the same. You can modify the text here, and that's really about it. Under the sync data, you could choose to sync various fields that are included. By default, it does it on the register as the sync field. You could choose to login and links as well to sync data to the profile. Honestly, registration is typically all you need. I don't see the inherent advantage of constantly requesting new sync data for the user who registers with Yahoo. They're not going to send you much of anything useful. Now, what I will say is if you use something like Steam and you have a gaming website and you're probably using some sort of custom setup, but you're using this as your registration backhaul, having the ability to sync the data in that kind of situation would be useful. Say you're trying to sync their game library. I'm not saying that you could do that, but if you had a system in place to handle that data, you would be able to constantly sync the data on login and registration, and then you could output that on their profile. There's so many ways you could use this, but for most implementations, especially when we're using Yahoo, I would just use it at registration. You could choose how to store various information. Basically, you can request and store the following information: the locale of the user, the email verification status. I wouldn't see when you should use this. The birth date could be useful, and I would probably say you could go ahead and request this, especially if you're using a BuddyPress powered website. You could use this and output it as one of the profile fields. The nickname is it's just a gimmick feature. I wouldn't really request that for anything. The gender information would be, again, useful if you're building a BuddyPress powered website. You could just request the information here, and then you could sync it to the profile. I would request that. Locale, email verification, and nickname are not really high on the priority list, though, in my opinion. And then finally, there is the usage implementation. You can request it from the following shortcodes, and you can use these to output. If you're a theme developer, you'll most likely just use the standard Nextend Social Login, which will output all of the providers in a very simple button format. That's really all there is to setting up the Yahoo plugin and all of its advanced pro features. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to ask in the comment section below. Otherwise, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.